names, boy and girl. Somebody was right on the mark there.
Yes, spot on, yes. And they were used in the filming of Born Free. And at the end of the filming of Born Free, the producers then, to their shame, sold the lions to circuses. But they couldn't sell boy and girl because they were George's personal property. So he took them, rehabilitated them, girls successfully into Meru National Park and boys similarly. But some years later, it must have been 68, just before we'd bought Christian, Joy had found Boy and he had been injured, presumably by killing a buffalo, and he was in terrible shape and he had his shoulder smashed, he had porcupine quills through his paw because that was all he could catch. And so they took him, Sue Hart, famous vet, flew up and they operated on him, took him back to Joy's house, Ellesmere, at Lake Naivasha, and George was retired then. He was looking after him. And so he was recovering. So when Christian, the opportunity of working with Christian came along, he thought, right, I've got to rehabilitate Boy again, we'll take Christian at the same time. So that's how Boy and Christian...
And they had a fairly rocky relationship because there's...
At the beginning,
yes.
At the beginning it was rough.
And then Boy loved him as well, but it was quite a few months of putting him down.
Now, after that moment, that beautiful moment, there you are, you've greeted, we've seen the vision. After that, he has, from what I understand, his harem, his two girls in the background. How did they were standing way off to the side. How were they reacting to you only 50 metres away?
Well, they were lions we didn't really know. And in fact, on that occasion, they stayed away a little bit, but over the ensuing days, when we went for walks, they would actually lay in ambush for us, and Christian would whoosh them away.
Because they obviously were very sensitive to the attention he was giving you. After that moment, is it true that you actually took Christian back to your camp? The girls are over there, not happy, spitting, crying a bit. Were you taking our husband? You take Christian back to your camp and have another few hours with him?
Yes, he came back with George, and
then when some hours later he goes back.
He goes back, yes, because you know he's removing Christian from the human world. And
but is it true he went back smelling of humans and whiskey?
Well, I'm afraid George did slightly over-celebrate. And of course we had smoking in those days, and of course, so Christian goes back, you know, kind of a night on the town with the boys, you know, whiskey and cigarettes, and you know, I think he got into a bit of trouble. But the routine was quite...
And the girls were not happy with him.
But the routine was, George's routine was he would take the lions out or he would walk them to show their territory. And I can tell you one funny we were laughing about this morning was that the first time Christian saw a rhino, Boy was at the front walking, then there's a little cub, Catania, then there's Christian, then there's George, and he always had a rifle in case there was a problem. And so they're walking along and they see this rhino. Well, Boy, fully grown lion, never take on a fully grown rhino anyhow. They just move out of the way. So he walks off. The little cub follows, but Christian thinks, I'll have this. So he's stalking the rhino, and as you know, rather short-sighted. And of course, by the time the rhino realized he was being stalked, he was totally outraged that this kind of youngish cub was stalking a fully grown rhino. So all George saw, and we've had it in a letter he wrote to us, was this whirlwind of dust, and Christian totally hurled through the air. We don't know whether he jumped or whether he was thrown by the rhino. The rhino charges past Joyce, you know, furious, and Christian's lying there spluttering on his back of the dust, and apparently Boy looks round and has a look at him to say, you know.
Idiot. Yeah, don't take on a black rhino.
The lessons you learn.
So what we've learned, the world has been watching this with great affection, awe, tears. What are we, as a world in this enlightened time of communication, conservation, what are we supposed to learn here? How do we take advantage of this in the most positive of ways? And again, re-emphasising the fact Christian did have, for all intents and purposes, a happy natural life. You don't know what happened to him at the end. He was never seen again, but he lived a natural life, whatever that may have been. What do we learn?
Well, I think this is... for us, it's very, as Ace said last night, slightly humbling, but it's terrific that people are so interested in seeing something of this kind of unconditional love. And because we're involved with the George Adamson Trust, and we have asked people, if you've enjoyed this clip, you know, and you have a love of conservation and a love of animals and appreciation of what, you know, we have to think about in the world today, you know, you just make a donation to the George Adamson Trust or to Taronga Zoo, which does wonderful work there.
So just give some great consideration to what needs to be done, and the great people like yourselves who are doing good work. You have given so many people so much joy, and a privilege to have you chat to us on the program this morning. We are grateful to hear the real story, the real background, you know, quash a few myths. John Rindell, thank you very much. I haven't seen you since Midday Days, so it's really,
I know, it's
really terrific.
And I'm glad you could meet Ace.
And
too.
Ace, it's a delight.
Because it was very much a joint project. It took us a lot of work, but that was the product.
Yeah, well done, and all the very, very best. Good morning.
Thank you very
John
much.
Rindell, Ace Burke. Okay, we move on mornings. Here's another